The Pan-African Parliament will resume its work today, and African members of Parliament will meet in Midrand, north of Johannesburg.
PAP President Chief Fortune Charumbira is going to officiate the proceedings, and there to watch over it all and bring us the story is SABC's Kaya Kumalo. Kaya, nice to see you. Talk to us. What are we expecting to happen there today?
Well, certainly, Leanne, quite a number of expectations here where the MPs will be looking at a number of issues. Obviously, the president of the Pan-African Parliament, Charumbira, is going to officiate and really talk about a number of issues. You'd recall that the last session, they were talking about repositioning this institution. We know for the longest time it's been facing a number of institutional challenges, its image also being battered. So there will be a report in terms of the progress since the election of the new leadership in June. Apart from that, you do have quite a number of heavyweights who are going to address the House, the likes of the Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland, but also we do understand that the Palestinian parliamentary speaker as well is going to address the House. Representing the President of the Republic of South Africa will be the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Lamola, to talk about really the very central role of this particular institution. But something that is very central, Leanne, will have to be around the unconstitutional changes of government in the continent. We've seen a number of countries, for example, Burkina Faso, in a matter of a few months or so, you've had the successive coups. So that's going to be another very important issue that the MPs will focus on in terms of the consolidation of democracy, human rights, and the issue of making sure that there are regular elections, because also the Pan-African Parliament has had an opportunity to observe a number of elections that were recently held. You look at Angola, you also look at Lesotho as well, among others.
I mean, do we have any idea in terms of some of the issues that are likely to be featured during this particular sitting?
Well, very much so, Leanne. Quite a litany of issues will feature during the course of the seating of the House. Issues pertaining to food security in the continent. The issue of peace and security as well. We do know that there are some pockets of conflicts that continue really to affect the continent. And when you talk about the continental free trade area, that is always the elephant in the room, that it's impossible really to see development flourishing as long as you do have conflicts in the continent. Especially also, we do know that South Africa is playing host to those peace talks in the Tigray in Ethiopia. We're hoping to get more report in terms of those developments. But apart from that, we do understand as well the ECOWAS parliamentary speaker as well from West Africa will also address the House. So something that is very important is to make sure that this institution is able to reclaim its position within the AU family. We do know that they do have a very critical role in terms of oversight, in terms of overseeing the project of the African Union, but also something that is very critically and will have to be around nutrition in the continent. We do know that the issue of food insecurity, it is a very big threat in light of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The continent has really been affected. There are some countries that are considered as food insecure. So really the massive responsibility facing the MPs will be to look at the issues, the bread and butter issues that are facing the continent.
Now, Kaya, you speak of the oversight role of the Pan-African Parliament and also taking up its rightful place, you know, in terms of where it locates itself within the African Union. With regard to that, has there been any meaningful assessment of the role of the Pan-African Parliament?
Well, absolutely, Sakina. So that is $1 million question. But since the new leadership took over, they made a number of commitments in terms of making sure that there is unity within the House. As you'd recall that previously, this institution really was mired in controversies with the infightings, the disunity amongst the regions. But one of the priorities of the new leadership led by President Charumbira is the issue of making sure that they are able to oversee a number of programs of the African Union in the continent in terms of making sure that the Africans the continent is able to develop. Apart from that, making sure that the issues of human rights as well are well respected. As you recall, that the continent is still facing quite a myriad of challenges when it comes to the human rights, when it comes to the self-respect of the people and stuff like that. But something also that the institution has been quite vociferous about will have to be the situation in Zimbabwe, for example, and it's quite a coincidence that the president of this institution is from Zimbabwe. So the issue of the sanctions, it's another issue that they've been calling for, the removal of these sanctions in Zimbabwe, especially because when you look at countries like South Africa, they've been very clear in terms of saying that, to some degree, it is affecting some of the neighboring countries, given the very economic challenges that are facing Zimbabwe. So that's another issue that is going to be looked upon by the MPs, but also message of solidarity from the Commonwealth. It's going to be interesting to hear from Miss Patricia Scotland, who is the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, in terms of the issues of governance and regular elections, because we do know it's quite a challenge in the continent where we still do have a number of leaders holding on to office.